Hey, Daniel.
Hello, hello. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Excited to be here.
Always excited to chat. Let me just get verification really quick that we are live. I think we're good to go, but let's just double check. Okay, cool. Yeah, looks like we're all good in the hood. Awesome. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Living the dream one day at a time. It's my go-to line here. Yeah, excited to chat here today. Why don't you start with just giving us a brief introduction, and then we'll jump into things here today.
Sure. I'm Kate Stevens. I'm the CEO and co-founder of BRIJ. BRIJ is a platform to help omni-channel brands use QR codes to build experiences. So that could be for first-party data capture, continue to tell your brand story, um, you know, easy product reorder. So really thinking about the QR code as a new channel for brands to use to connect with their customers, and to do so in a beautiful and seamless way.
Awesome. Yeah, an omni-channel is definitely something that is extremely important. Something that a lot of brands are definitely talking about here. Um, would love to jump right into it. I mean, how did you guys get started on the QR code side of things? I know it's definitely something some savvier sellers are doing, but I'm curious how you guys got going.
Sure. So just backing up my background, I was actually an investor by background and spent a lot of time investing in omni-channel, future of retail. An area that I was particularly, focused on or, obsessed with is, when brands sell through third-party retailers, marketplaces, the data that they're losing. I believe that there's a win-win to, brands having or merchants having more data. So that's kind of my background. Ended up going to Harvard Business School where I met my co-founder, Zach. He's an engineer by background, and we graduated in 2020. The reason that is significant is, the pandemic, of course. And so a lot of the trends that I saw, around omni-channel, prior to school on the investing side were really accelerated. So, retail brands that never had a direct presence were, starting to set up a D2C channel. Amazon, as you well know, was becoming a, much greater share of a brand's, selling channel. Whereas it used to be something where it's like, oh, we'd consider being on Amazon. Most of the brands that we talk to and work with now, it's, a need to be on Amazon, just because it's provided such a seamless customer experience. It's a customer acquisition channel, for brands. So that was kind of a dynamic. And then the other really important kind of trend, really, because of the pandemic, was QR code adoption. So not a new technology, but really a new consumer behavior driven by the pandemic. It was really restaurant menus, that created that forced adoption of QR codes. Actually, just backing up a little bit on the history of QR codes. Again, not a new technology; they've been around for over 10 years. But you used to need an app, so you would need to download an app to be able to scan a QR code. And it wasn't until 2017 that Apple and Android made that native to the phone. So you could just open up your camera now, as you well know, and scan a QR code. So that removed the consumer friction. But it was really, the pandemic and contactless that, was that forcing mechanism around driving that new consumer behavior, scanning a QR code. So we really saw this, opportunity to use a QR code to be that bridge between a brand and their customer. And so that's really how we got started with QR codes, really thinking about leveraging it as a way for brands to use a new communication channel to connect with their customers.
No, that's awesome, and I think you really hit the nail on the head in regards to COVID really accelerating like the adoption of it. I think you have to be somewhat savvy to know in the past that your every camera app will automatically open up a QR code, but I feel like with restaurants and things like that, it just made it a lot easier at that point. And so, in regards to how you guys are leveraging it, specifically with marketplaces, there, when you guys are thinking QR codes, like, I think what are some of the main reasons why it'd be valuable? I think would be a great place to start, and then let's talk about how to use them from there. But yeah, why are some of the reasons customers are using them right now?
Sure. So we break down the core use cases for our customers into three categories. One is first party data capture. So when you sell, through a marketplace, through Amazon, you do not know who that customer is at all. So an ability to, capture that customer's contact information, so you can provide a better level of care, continue to nurture that customer beyond that initial purchase. So first party data capture, usually in the form of email, is the number one most common use case, and we can talk about the different ways depending on the type of product you have. But that customer email, so you can nurture that customer. And the second is brand storytelling. So this could be setup videos, it could be recipes. So thinking about your brand storytelling, especially in that post-purchase experience. So you were able to drive that initial acquisition of the product. How do you make sure that the customer is using it in the way it's intended to be used, and to the fullest extent? So how do you, bring your brand storytelling to that post-purchase experience? And then the third is reorder, and or subscription. So, especially if you're a, high repeat purchase item, how do you make it really easy using the QR code to hit the customer at, time of when they're thinking about reorder? So, especially if you think about, a supplement product, a vitamin, how can you use the QR code to drive a frictionless reorder, at that time where that customer is thinking about it?
Yeah, that really helps a lot. And I think it just comes to at least what we've seen, particularly in marketplaces as they're getting more difficult, right? Like acquisition costs realistically have been going, up and up, particularly on like a channel like Amazon, right? Which makes sense. It just wasn't fully saturated from an advertising perspective. And we're definitely finding, Amazon's hitting a little bit more normalization in regards to where those CPCs are going to end up at. But, especially like you mentioned supplements, sometimes you're selling, an item with an average order value of like $19.99, right? And your net new, your starting CPCs are $10 a click because you don't rank against these search terms, right? It's basically impossible just mathematically to be profitable, even if your conversion rate is at a 50% rate, right? And then ultimately, this is why I tell brands, you have to sell a brand, not a commodity there, and being able to like tell that brand story, right? Provide that content, even provide what I call the post-purchase content in things like a QR code, really just becomes so advantageous for ultimately like squeezing more dollars per customer, right? Is one thing, like you mentioned, like repeat purchases, there being able to like get a second, kind of attempt to sell your brand and not your product again. Also even things like upsells there across promotions, like, I mean, it's something that we do a lot on like the DSP front there, but being able to get some of that first party data just gives you a leg up and being able to like kind of essentially control your own destiny a little bit there, which is really, really fruitful. So super cool. Are you guys, in regards to QR codes, you typically recommend, these goes directly like on product packaging? Do these usually come in on like product inserts? Walk me through kind of how you see the best things on your end.
Sure. So, we're really like having customers use QR codes across various different mechanisms. So, product inserts, product packaging. What we recommend is really thinking about, the core goals or that, primary, value transfer that you want to deliver to the consumer, but also, goal that you have in mind. And that will dictate where that QR code should be. I think the, lowest hanging fruit for an Amazon seller is an insert. So, a QR code there with some post-purchase content, the opportunity to, register a warranty or, opt into content from the brand. I think, that's where we're seeing the highest level of eyeballs, and the greatest conversion occur. And I think that becomes that, easiest first touch point to bring that customer into your, direct funnel. And also, drive that brand storytelling. As it relates to other mechanisms. So, packaging on the product itself, going back to the vitamin supplement, thinking about it being on the product, so that when the customer, if you think about the consumer behavior of finishing your supplement, that could be a really good time that you'd want the customer to be scanning the QR code for easy replenishment. So depending on, how you're thinking about the pain point that you're looking to solve here is where we would recommend putting that QR code. Using a BRIJ, like a platform like BRIJ, we can, have various different content in one QR code. So something that we see brands doing that we'd probably advise against is, QR code, one QR code to scan for setup video, another QR code to scan to register, another QR code to, leave leave a review. There's too many calls to action. So thus your, and too many QR codes. So thus your conversion is going to just, go down across all three. So, we really recommend thinking about it within the customer's journey. What's that number one thing that you're looking to optimize? And then, using a platform for BRIJ, we can include a lot of that different content that is, value add to the consumer in this one, really purpose-built experience, as opposed to having 17 different QR codes.
I think that's a huge point there on that piece. Is it's not just getting the customer to scan something, right, but having a strategy in place behind it. And then ultimately, the least amount of friction possible, the better, right, is what I find for just selling or ordering. So the more, I don't know, flows you try to get the customer to go through, right, I feel like it's trying to get them to jump through hula hoops sometimes there versus trying to get them into a singular piece. Would you say one question I might have is, let's say you get the QR codes going. Do you recommend people still optimize those landing pages, right? Because ultimately it sounds like the customer journey piece and where they're at is going to be important. But I think speak through maybe some of the optimization side of things, because I think a lot of people don't think about that side there.
Yeah, I mean, that's really important, right? So, you pointed out correctly that the first thing you need to do is get the customer to scan that QR code. But then, thinking about that, the landing page that they're going to, how to optimize that. So first of all, it should be mobile first, because you're scanning a QR code. You're probably doing so with your phone. So that, landing page should not be, focused on a desktop experience. It should really be a mobile optimized experience. And then you're thinking about, how do you really, make it thoughtful around what is that number one action you want a customer to do. So, is it that you want them to, sign up to a newsletter for some content? Do you want them to register your warranty? Make it very focused as it relates to that optimization. And then the additional content can come after that. So as you bring your customer through your funnel, we really focus on, getting those core pieces, bringing them into your ecosystem to then show them additional kind of nice to have content versus the need to have, so that you could really think about that customer journey. So yeah, optimizing that the landing page experience for the QR code is extremely critical, and something that you can do very easily using BRIJ.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think even the I like what you talked about, almost the post scanning flow, right, where it's the more important stuff is hitting initially, right, but there are things down the line that maybe you'll want to add towards them. I also think it's smart, especially if you can get an email capture or a phone number capture of some sort through a QR code or having one of those walled off pieces. Then you could always throw a customer into a separate flow, right? You can throw them into an email flow, I throw them into an SMS flow. There you can always hit upsells, things that I definitely encourage, trying to get an email capture or some sort of first party data. When you do leverage those QR codes, in my experience, tends to definitely be a lot fruitful, because you can use it for a lot of different things down the line.
Exactly. And so one of the things that, we focus on at BRIJ is making it as seamless and easy for the customer as possible, but also getting as much data for the brand as possible. And so in order to do that, we would recommend that you're doing, a product or even a SKU specific QR code. So basically all of the product level of information is already embedded in that QR code. So when you get that email capture, that customer is now tied to that specific product or SKU. The reason that's important, as you mentioned, Daniel, is then, pulling in that customer email to do, additional personalization. So, how you can, capture this data in a way that's frictionless for the customer, but then also maximizes your ability to, personalize the follow-up. So, having automatic integrations with Shopify and Klaviyo to bring in those, customer information tied to that specific product, and then set them up into, personalized flows.
I like that. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense to me. I know some of the things I've done with some QR codes, which is pretty fun. Sometimes it's we like them so much that we'll even put them into we won't put the QR code into the content, but we'll talk about some of the value adds sometimes. So right now with one of the top keto items on Amazon, for example. And one of the things we have like directly in our product listing is get your free keto guide there. So even though we're selling an item, right, we have this thing and we're getting thousands and thousands of downloads, right, directly on our QR code. We actually put that as a product image directly in our listing, right? So the QR code piece isn't there, but we put enough effort into just the content itself for that QR code because we see the value of it, right? And it's an item that, in 2 years we've generated 20,000 reviews, right? On a net new item there. And it's not like we're doing anything black hat, right? Anything like that. It's just simply like we are providing, free value add to those customers via something as simple as a QR code there.
And Daniel, you bring up a really good point there. I think, something that we think is critically important. So we talked about, getting a customer to scan and then optimizing the landing page to, get that action. I think the third, key item there that you're really alluding to is give the customer value. If you're looking to, get the customer to give you their email, you need to be giving them something in exchange. And that is relevant to your product. So that, for a keto product, that the guide, for that consumer that's really focused on being keto, like that is, relevant content for that consumer. And so I think that thinking about maximizing those three components is what we're seeing drive the greatest success there.
100%. I can absolutely see that as well. For you guys, typically, like if, I'm working with someone like BRIJ, like how easy is it to get things set up? If you are trying to activate QR codes, is this something that takes a lot of investment from, a brand or a person typically? I'm curious what you've seen in your experience there.
Yeah. So you can get set up with BRIJ in minutes. So if you are on Shopify, we have a Shopify app that you can download. We'll, connect to all of your products and your content in your store. And so you can generate QR codes, across all of your products in minutes. We have a no-code builder that allows you to build these mobile optimized landing pages tied to specific products, or you can do them on a company level. And so it could be totally self-service, or we have a team of customer success who can help guide you through our best practices. So that's kind of what it looks like for a Shopify brand. We also work with non-Shopify brands as well. Very similar process. You can have those QR codes generated in minutes. We have different templates that you can leverage. Whether it's reorder or subscription, warranty registration that we've tested across hundreds of brands. So you can leverage those templates to make sure that you're optimizing that in a really easy manner.
Nice. You get some of the testing work done for or for the people out of the way, which is always fun.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, this is really exciting. I would say, like, are you seeing QR codes work on any particular channels better than others, or are you just kind of seeing success across the board? I'm curious. Yeah, how it's been.
Yeah, so I would say we break our business into two different key categories, and the reason that we do so is the way in which the consumer engages. So one is your durable good product. So anything kind of higher value item that think about your coffee maker or your vacuum cleaner, something that you would have a predisposed consumer behavior around registering a warranty. So that is, one category, and those perform really well. The other category is, broadly CPG. Within that vertical, there, you have your food and beverage, you have your, supplements. We're working with customers across all of those categories. What we have seen some of the best engagement with is on the, supplement type category where there is this, repeat purchase behavior. So we've seen, brands do some pretty exciting things there around, content relevant to those supplements, the, drive to reorder, as well as driving to subscription. So we're integrated with all the major subscription providers, as well as can, drive subscription on Amazon as well. And so, I think that that's been a really good use case for QR codes.
Super helpful. And I would say, supplements, definitely like high repeat purchase item, really consumables in general. I think it's always something to think about. Like QR codes can be just so important for that piece, especially like you've got some low AOVs, like even beauty, right? Sometimes like AOVs can be low, sometimes food can be low compared to some of the acquisition costs. But this is just a way to help like ultimately squeeze more dollars per that newly acquired customer, right? Like almost 70% of Amazon searches at this point are non-branded, right? They're new to brand search terms. So new customer acquisition is pretty massive on a lot of these platforms, but they always get more expensive over time, right? And so being able to ultimately create brand loyalty, right? Create repeat purchases, and then if you can really scale into like upsells and getting folks into complementary items and associated items and things like that. That's really how these brands, are starting to make money over time. And really QR code's just such a great way to do that. What would you say, like, do you ever get pushback on, brands that, let's say, like they're selling in retail, right? And you're trying to explain to them why QR codes could be valuable. Is there a way that they can use QR codes for multiple channels? For example, is that something that you've seen success with as well?
Yeah. So all of our customers are what we'd call omni-channel. And I think that there's varying degrees of that. So I think you mentioned earlier about, the power of having a brand when selling on Amazon. There are some merchants out there that are, not branded and they're just selling a product. That's not the best customer for BRIJ. We really think about the brands that are, want to have an important consumer touch point across all of their channels. So their D2C, their Amazon, and their retail channels. We're seeing retailers encourage QR codes. So that has not been an element of pushback. It's, something that we'll definitely get questions about, how to use it in how to use QR codes in a thoughtful way. But we have, brands that are actually using QR codes at point of purchase in retail to help drive retail velocity. So whether that's, in-store education, the ability to offer a rebate via Venmo to have that purchase in store, tell more about the product. I think what we hear is a big challenge in retail is that you have a limited amount of packaging to really tell your brand story. So how do you, bridge some of the storytelling that you're able to do in your D2C site, to this, in-store environment. So that's something that we see on the retail side. And then, using post-purchase surveys as an opportunity to understand where your customers are coming from. I think that channel attribution is another really important part of the use of QR codes and how we have brands using QR codes to date to understand where their customers are coming from, who their customers are in those channels, to then inform how they can reinvest in those channels and make sure that they're being successful across all of their channels.
No, I love it. I actually really like that survey idea. That's a really it's a really smart move as well, just to get some like additional insights into how your customers are actually feeling and where they're ultimately purchasing from you. I know I've had, what else have we done? I usually recommend keeping it channel agnostic, like you mentioned, sort of like on the QR codes. But then just asking where'd you buy us? Where'd you hear about us? There typically has been pretty fruitful because it does help across the board, right? Honestly, like you mentioned, once customers buy into these brands, they're going to buy you when they're on Amazon, right? They're going to buy you once they're in retail. They're going to buy you, when they're on Target.com or whatever it is from there, right? Once they've decided they like the brand, I think that's really the big key. And this is just your chance of getting in additional touch points, right? On those customers and really just hitting more of your traditional marketing media principles, right? But treating it with an omnichannel approach rather than a silo, because ultimately, it's not.
Yeah, as a consumer, if you think about your consumer experience, you experience a brand in social media, in store, on Amazon, online, and then you're purchasing it, whenever and wherever is convenient for you. And so, a brand's ability to build that brand equity with a customer so that, even if it means the next time that customer is searching for their, keto supplement, they're doing so with the brand name on Amazon instead of, keto supplement. And I think that that's a really important distinction.
Yeah, you absolutely nailed it, right? It's if you do this right and you really create, you hit new customer acquisition right, you build that brand equity, right, and really kind of do those things correctly, like eventually your branded volume can overtake the non-branded volume, right? We work with the #1 men's hair brand on Amazon, and there's more searches for my brand name, plus pomade than there is for pomade itself, right? And it's not a surprise. It's once you have the visibility you need, right? It's ultimately, and you have that brand equity there, people come back and they buy it. So creating that loyalty any way you can, and BRIJ is obviously an awesome way to start getting there.
Exactly. So Daniel, I'm curious, obviously reviews are really important, a huge driver of being successful on Amazon. What are you seeing, or what do you recommend for your customers on the review side in a way that you're staying, of course, TOS compliant?
Yeah, great question. So there's a couple things, right? One, even something as simple as content is really key there. So like, especially if you don't have reviews, right? Like I launched in this keto category with 0 reviews, right? There. And a lot of my competitors had like 30,000 reviews or 20,000, right? So it's pretty competitive there. And so just creating like really good content right off the bat. I actually, if I can, I do like to push QR codes early on, just so that every sale that I'm getting, I am getting either that first party data, or I'm also like really selling the brand a little bit harder than just a commodity. So that's one thing that we actually did right off the bat was drive towards a sort of landing page there. And then really like new customers leave reviews at twice the rate that existing customers do typically, right? So usually your first product to launch is, it's going to be the hardest because it's the most expensive. But once you have that first item established, there's some ways you can kind of push off of that. But usually what we'll do is try to rank you on some non-branded terms. Usually we'll go more moderate terms because it's less competitive, right? Once you rank organically, now your new customer acquisition starts to go up. And so those reviews start to come in, right? Now, having that content be really on point to really, like we even have a brand image. Like every one of our listings that we would launch, we're going to have what we call our unique selling points. But one of my unique selling points is all about the brand, right? Even if you don't have a brand, we will create a brand for you, because you need to have something that like the people are buying into at the end of the day. And so that's really important from a content perspective. There, typically once you start to rank, right, reviews will slowly trickle in. And then there's additional things we can start to add down the line, right? There's things like DSP there. It's kind of like, like once the audience gets big enough, or essentially our existing customers gets big enough, we can leverage sort of past purchasers of the DSP platform, of our products using Amazon's DSP, and then basically re-engage some of those consumers that way. And then typically, like the easiest thing to do from a review gen perspective is to sell into existing customers, right? So if you already have an established brand, you already have an established product, right? It typically is a little bit easier to launch because you can start to like at least speak to some of your audience, right? So let's say, if let's say I built up an email list from leveraging a QR code on product A, right? I'm launching product B. I can send an email to, folks of product A. Hey, we just launched our, associated product on Amazon, right? What do you think? Here's like, you don't have to provide any sort of discount, right? You don't have to incentivize that, but you now have an audience that loves your brand, right? Or leaving good reviews for you that you can, in fact, use to start at least seeding your listing a little bit, right? And seeding the listing can definitely help. So those are a couple things that we do, I'd say there. Try to keep it above board for sure, just because there are obviously little tricks and things that pop up from time to time, but Amazon and other marketplaces do like to crack the whip, from time to time as well. So being cautious is always important.
Yeah, makes complete sense. And I agree. We've definitely heard building that email list with a, existing customer base becomes so critical for launching new products. So,
oh yeah, no. Whether it's email, like some people it's social, right? They'll use their social channels, right? Which is a different way you could go at it. I've seen brands use like traditional media, like TV and radio, to like really bump things up. So it's being creative, but having an existing list is always the best way to get things going.
That makes sense.
Well, awesome. Well, I feel like this has definitely been a really solid, concise chat of what we can do here. But if people wanted to get started on the BRIJ front, I think it's important that they know how to get in touch with you guys. So what's the best way of chatting?
Sure. Is this chat live to people if I,
It is.
chat
It is
our...
live, and then we can add in the comments. We'll just we'll follow up and add in the comments like the actual probably link there as well.
Yeah, sir. So you can reach out to me at Kait, Kait, at brij.it. So it's Brij, BRIJ.it. You also could just go to our website at brij.it to book a demo. So you can get started that way. Or anyone listening can also get in touch with us through you guys as well. Happy to be a partner here and collaborate with one another. I'm also on LinkedIn, Kait Stevens. Obviously, we're live on LinkedIn now, so you can chat me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there.
Yeah, go reach out to Kait with a K, not a C. Very important. I don't know that. But yeah,
Kait is Kait. Yeah, I'm messing everything up with the spelling here.
Yeah, it's okay. Parents had to give you the harder way to spell it, I guess. There you go. Well, awesome. This has been such a great chat, and definitely don't forget about those QR codes. Don't forget about creating brand loyalty, and let's keep growing together. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Daniel.
Bye-bye.